The night everything changed, Crestwood, Illinois, was the kind of town where people left their doors unlocked and waved at passing cars. It was quiet, predictable, safe, until October 15th, 2016. That morning, as the sun cast its first light over the suburban streets, a jogger made a discovery that shattered that illusion forever. The front door of a modest single-story home stood ajar, swaying slightly in the breeze. Something dark was smeared on the handle. A chill ran down his spine. He stepped closer, peering inside. Then he saw it. Two bodies sprawled motionless on the living room floor. Melissa Carter, a 32-year-old ER nurse, and her longtime friend Daniel Reed, 34, had been brutally murdered in what would become one of Illinois' most baffling double homicides. The crime scene told a story of chaos. Overturned furniture, shattered glass, and a trail of blood leading down the hallway. Yet, despite the violence, there were no signs of forced entry, no immediate suspects, no clear motive. The town was left reeling. And as police launched their investigation, one thing became terrifyingly clear. The killer wasn't a stranger. They had been invited. Melissa Carter was known for her compassion. She had spent years working long shifts at Crestwood General Hospital, often volunteering for extra hours when the ER overflowed. Daniel Reed, a graphic designer, was her best friend since college. They weren't romantically involved, but their bond was unbreakable. On the night of October 14th, 2016, Melissa had just finished a 12-hour shift. Security footage showed her leaving the hospital at 12:07 a.m. She looked exhausted, but there was something else, unease. She kept glancing over her shoulder. Daniel, meanwhile, had spent the evening at a local bar. Surveillance cameras captured him laughing with friends, unaware it would be his last night alive. He left at 1:15 a.m., took an Uber home, and was dropped off at 1:32 a.m. That's where the digital trail ended, except for one chilling detail. Both Melissa and Daniel received a call from an unknown number at 1:45 a.m. The same number. The call lasted less than 10 seconds. The next morning, when Melissa didn't show up for her shift, her colleagues grew concerned. She was never late. Meanwhile, Daniel's sister, worried that he hadn't answered her texts, decided to check on him. But it wasn't her who found him first. At 6:12 a.m., a jogger, Jason Fuller, was running his usual route when he noticed something odd. Melissa's front door was open. He slowed his pace. Something felt wrong. As he stepped onto the porch, he saw the dark smear on the doorframe. His stomach clenched. He pushed the door open a little wider, calling out softly. No answer. Then, through the dim light filtering in through the curtains, he saw them. Two bodies, blood pooling on the hardwood floor, a gasp stuck in his throat. He backed away and dialed 911, his hands shaking. When officers arrived minutes later, they found a crime scene that defied logic. The house wasn't ransacked. No valuables were missing. The attack had been deliberate, targeted, and yet the brutality suggested rage. The killer hadn't just wanted them dead. They had wanted to send a message. The town buzzed with speculation. At first, investigators considered the possibility of a burglary gone wrong, but that theory collapsed quickly. Nothing had been taken. Then came the whispers. Had Melissa been seeing someone? Had Daniel been involved in something dangerous? But their lives, at least on the surface, were ordinary. Too ordinary. The first real clue came from the forensic team. Blood spatter analysis revealed something chilling. Melissa had fought back. Defensive wounds on her arms suggested she had tried to block the killer's attack. But Daniel? His wounds were more precise, almost calculated. It was as if the killer had a personal vendetta against him. The autopsy confirmed that while Melissa had bled out from multiple stab wounds, Daniel had been executed. One clean cut to the throat. As investigators combed through the evidence, one unsettling fact became clear. The killer had taken their time. There were no signs of forced entry, suggesting Melissa or Daniel had let them in. The crime wasn't rushed. It was methodical. The knife wounds on Melissa's body were erratic, almost frenzied, while Daniel's were precise, a single fatal cut. This pointed to a personal motive. Someone had wanted Daniel dead immediately but had taken pleasure in killing Melissa. Surveillance footage from a neighbor's doorbell camera revealed something chilling. At 2:04 a.m., just minutes after Melissa and Daniel had received the mystery phone call, a dark figure was seen walking toward the house. The footage was grainy, the features blurred, but the body language was distinct, confident, unhurried. They knew exactly where they were going. The footage then showed them leaving at 3:11 a.m. That meant the killer had spent over an hour inside. The mystery phone call was the only digital lead investigators had. The number was unregistered, likely a burner phone. Cell tower records showed the call had originated from within a 5-mile radius of Melissa's home, meaning the killer was likely already nearby when they called. But what? Melissa's phone history revealed something even more unsettling. 2 weeks before the murder, she had received a similar call. Same unknown number, same short duration. Had she been stalked? Investigators dug into Daniel's phone records as well. Shockingly, he had received the same call on the same night. Had they realized they were being watched? Did they know who was after them? Digging into the victim's past, detectives discovered Melissa had a recent restraining order, filed just 3 months before the murders. The name on the report? Ethan Keller, a former boyfriend. Ethan had a history of erratic behavior. He had shown up unannounced at Melissa's workplace, sent hundreds of messages, and once even followed her home. The restraining order was granted after he allegedly broke into her car and left a single black rose on the driver's seat. But could he be the killer? When police brought Ethan in for questioning, his reaction was unnerving. He didn't deny knowing about the murders. In fact, he smiled. "Melissa always thought she could outsmart me," he muttered. But his alibi checked out. He had been at a hotel miles away, security footage confirming his presence at the time of the murders. So if it wasn't him, who else wanted Melissa dead? Weeks passed with no new leads. Then, a shocking breakthrough: DNA evidence. Forensic techs found a single hair strand beneath Melissa's fingernails. It wasn't Ethan's. When they ran it through the national database, they got a hit. James Holloway, a former patient at Crestwood General Hospital. He had been admitted 6 months before the murders for a psychiatric episode. He had ranted about Melissa, calling her an angel and saying she had saved him. But when he was discharged, he left angry, convinced she had betrayed him. No one had seen him since. James Holloway had disappeared, but not entirely. Investigators traced his last known address to an abandoned house outside town. When they arrived, they found disturbing evidence. Inside, the walls were covered in newspaper clippings about Melissa, photos of her taken from a distance. Even her restraining order against Ethan Keller was pinned up. James had been watching everything. James Holloway was arrested 6 days later at a gas station, disheveled and muttering to himself. When police questioned him, his words sent chills down their spines. "They shouldn't have ignored me," James confessed, but his reasoning was delusional. He claimed Melissa had played with his fate and that Daniel had stood in the way. James Holloway was sentenced to life without parole, but questions remained. Had Ethan Keller played a role? Or had James been acting alone all along? Crestwood would never forget the tragedy. The scars remained, but justice had finally been served. The case of Melissa Carter and Daniel Reed was closed, but the questions it left behind still haunt Crestwood. Could James Holloway have acted alone, or was someone else pulling the strings? What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more true crime stories.